Harold II, also known as Harold Godwinson, was the last Anglo-Saxon king of England, whose reign in 1066 was marked by dramatic events that would shape the future of the kingdom for centuries to come. His brief rule ended with his death at the Battle of Hastings, a pivotal moment in English history that led to the Norman conquest. Harold's reign, although lasting only 9 months, encapsulated the end of the Anglo-Saxon era and the beginning of a new chapter in England's history. The year 1066 is one of the most significant in English history, marked not only by Harold's death, but by the dramatic events surrounding his succession and the subsequent battle for the throne. Harold II's leadership during this period, including his defense of England against both Norwegian and Norman invasions, as well as his eventual defeat at Hastings, cemented his place in the annals of English history. Harold II was born in 1022, the son of Godwin, the powerful Earl of Wessex, and Wulfrun, a woman of Anglo-Saxon and possibly Welsh descent. Harold's family played a prominent role in the political landscape of 11th century England. Godwin, as one of the most powerful earls in the kingdom, wielded significant influence at court and was instrumental in the early stages of Harold's career. Harold's early life was shaped by his father's ambitions. In his youth, Harold experienced the complexity of Anglo-Saxon politics, particularly the power struggles between King Ethelred the Unready and the Danish invaders. His father, Godwin, played a major role in the eventual defeat of the Danish king Cnut the Great and the restoration of the Anglo-Saxon monarchy. After Cnut's death, England was embroiled in a series of dynastic struggles, and Harold's family capitalized on this instability to rise to prominence. In the 1050s, Harold's father, Godwin, had significant influence over the English court. His power was augmented when Harold himself became involved in military campaigns. Harold demonstrated his abilities as a skilled warrior, as well as his understanding of the political environment. By 1060, Harold's political influence was on the rise. Upon Godwin's death in 1053, Harold became the leader of the Godwin family and inherited his father's vast estates and title, making him the most powerful noble in England. Harold's rise to the throne was closely tied to the death of King Edward the Confessor in January 1066. Edward's death left England without a direct heir. Edward had no children, and while he had named Harold as his successor on his deathbed, the succession was far from certain. Edward's last years had been marked by uncertainty over the rightful heir to the throne, as various factions within the Anglo-Saxon nobility and beyond had their own ambitions for the crown. Harold was a natural candidate due to his status as the leader of the most powerful family in England. However, his claim was contested. One significant rival for the throne was William, Duke of Normandy, who claimed that Edward had promised him the throne during a visit to Normandy many years earlier. Another claimant was Harald Hardrada, King of Norway, who argued that he had a legitimate claim based on his relation to the previous Anglo-Saxon kings. In addition to these external challenges, there were several internal factions that also vied for power, leading to a tense and competitive political climate. Following Edward's death, Harold was crowned King of England on January 6, 1066. His coronation was, however, contested by both William of Normandy and Harald Hardrada, who viewed Harold's accession as illegitimate. Harold's claim to the throne was based on his close relationship with Edward the Confessor, who had named him as his successor, but his rival claimants would not accept this designation. Harold's first significant challenge as king came from the north. Harald Hardrada, the King of Norway, had a long-standing claim to the English throne, based on an agreement made between his predecessor and King Canute the Great. In the summer of 1066, Hardrada landed in northern England with a large fleet and army, aiming to take the throne. At the same time, Tostig Godwinson, Harold's estranged brother, allied with Hardrada, which further complicated Harold's position. The Norwegian invasion of England came at a particularly unfortunate time for Harold, as he was preparing for a possible confrontation with William of Normandy. Hardrada's forces landed in the north, and Harold immediately raised an army to confront the invaders. The two armies met at Stamford Bridge on September the 25th, 1066, near York. Harold's forces decisively defeated Hardrada's Norwegian army, killing the king and ending the Norwegian threat to the throne. This victory was a significant achievement for Harold, as it secured the northern part of England and reinforced his legitimacy as king. However, the battle came at a great cost. Harold's army, though victorious, was weakened and exhausted by the battle. This would have significant consequences just days later, as Harold would need to face another formidable enemy. While Harold was engaged in the battle against Hardrada in the north, William of Normandy was preparing for his own invasion of England. William's claim to the throne was based on his alleged promise from Edward the Confessor and the support of the Pope, who had sanctioned William's campaign. By the time Harold defeated Hardrada, William had landed on the southern coast of England with a large force. Harold was forced to march his army south, leaving the north vulnerable. The two armies met at the Battle of Hastings on October the 14th, 1066. Harold's forces, though battle-hardened from Stamford Bridge, were outnumbered and exhausted. The battle itself was hard fought, with Harold's forces initially holding their ground. However, the key turning point in the battle came when Harold was struck by an arrow in the eye, and his death was quickly followed by the collapse of his army. With Harold's death, the Anglo-Saxon resistance was broken, and William emerged victorious. The Battle of Hastings marked the end of Anglo-Saxon rule in England and the beginning of the Norman conquest. Harold's death had profound consequences for England's political and social structure, as William of Normandy established a new ruling dynasty that would shape the kingdom for centuries to come. Though Harold II's reign was brief, it was marked by significant events that shaped the course of English history. As a leader, Harold demonstrated considerable military skill, especially in his victory at Stamford Bridge. His leadership in defense of England, particularly against Hardrada's invasion, showed that he was capable of rallying the kingdom against external threats. However, his reign was also marked by a series of political challenges, not least the contested succession. Harold's rapid ascension to the throne, combined with the tensions between his claim and those of William of Normandy and Harold Hardrada, placed him in a difficult position. His failure to secure a permanent solution to these challenges left England vulnerable to the Norman invasion, which would fundamentally alter the political landscape. Despite these challenges, Harold's reign can be seen as a final attempt to preserve the Anglo-Saxon monarchy and defend the kingdom from external invaders. His tragic death at Hastings marked the end of an era for England. His legacy, though overshadowed by the subsequent Norman conquest, remains a significant part of England's history. As the last Anglo-Saxon king, Harold is often remembered for his courage, leadership, and the dramatic final moments of his reign. Harold II, the last Anglo-Saxon king of England, had a brief and turbulent reign that ended in tragedy. His leadership during the Battle of Stamford Bridge and his defense of England against Norwegian and Norman invasions demonstrate his military prowess. However, the contested succession, culminating in the Norman invasion, sealed Harold's fate and ended the Anglo-Saxon monarchy. His death at the Battle of Hastings marked the end of an era and ushered in the Norman conquest, which would change England forever. Though Harold's reign was short, his role in the history of England remains vital, and his legacy continues to be a defining moment in the kingdom's transformation.